Okay, now another important point is, has the book you're reading been well cited or frequently cited by other people? So earlier I mentioned, has it been well reviewed by other people? So that's where you look at the back, where you look on the inside and you see who's endorsing this book and do they have any credentials themselves. But now you're asking a slightly different question. You're asking, has this book been frequently cited by others? Have other authors referred to the book you're reading? So this is one of those things that I learned on my own in prison, because in the beginning I was getting all this the free books that people would send people in prison, and like most of this bottom row is books like that. So I like The Unseen Hand or Meditation and Mantras by Vishnu Devananda. A lot of this stuff, the Bhagavad Gita. And I remember when I really first started my journey, I read this book called We're All Doing Time by Bo Lozoff. I don't know if it's still a popular book, but 20 years ago, a lot of people got this because he would send them to you for free. He also wrote another one called The Spiritual Book that I have back here. I got a bunch of Buddhist material, Islamic material. Well, when it comes to some of the Eastern mystical material, theosophy, Buddhism, shamanism, I'm reading all these books and they're just free. You know, I don't know anything about the authors. They don't necessarily have an education in the area. They're not necessarily well referenced by other scholars. But I start to notice that there are certain books all of the other books keep referring to. So when I was reading some of these books back here on shamanism, mysticism, Buddhism, Hinduism, the occult, theosophy, Rosicrucianism. If you're not familiar with religious studies, then all this stuff might be very confusing to you. But as I'm reading all these books, when I would look in the back, they would refer to one book called Varieties of Religious Experience by William James. The Varieties of Religious Experience by William James was published now over 100 years ago, and he was a Harvard professor of psychology and philosophy. And in this book, he does one of the early psychological experiments or studies of different kinds of religious experience. So experiences that people describe in their prayer time, or mystical experiences of becoming one with nature or with God, or becoming enraptured. So he tries to do like a scientific analysis of different mystical religious experiences across the world. And all of these other cheap books that I was getting for free by unknown authors, apparently they had all read this book and they were referring to it as a source of support for what they had to say. So after I saw his name so many times, I was like, okay, if I really want to understand what all these other people are saying, I need to go straight to their source. I need to get this book. And that's what I mean. Is the book you're reading one that has been well referenced, well cited by others? So when I mentioned earlier, there are many books passed around in prison, like The 48 Laws of Power, or The Art of War, or like Never Be Lied to Again, or Before the Mayflower, or The Destruction of Black Civilization, or My Awakening. This stuff is passed around all the time, and it promotes a bunch of weird ideas. So for people in prison, those books would be cited by others because you hear about them all the time. And so that's what I mean. Like, you want to get right to the source of everybody else's information. What are the good books that everybody else is using? Varieties of Religious Experience is one of those books if you're studying like comparative world religions or psychology or mysticism. So when it comes to whatever field of study you're interested in, what are the books and authors that everyone else seems to keep referring to? And that's the kind of book you want to read.